The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. Hosted by Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. I couldn't be more honored tonight to have my guest. I grew up in Minneapolis, as you all know. I talk about it a lot. And we have with us tonight Dave Rusan. And Dave crafted many guitars for Prince, and he's just an amazing craftsman with the guitar. And he made the iconic Purple Rain guitar, the white one, the Cloud guitar, and he's made several for Prince after that. So we're going to get into that, but we're going to bring him on now. So Dave, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dave, growing up in Minneapolis, in the mid 80s were big for us because, the movies started kind of moving into the Twin Cities. There was a rebate, given to different movies that were filming there. And one of the first ever was Purple Rain in the mid 80s. And, I know that, and we talked about it in my promo or my intro, but the Cloud guitar, the white Cloud guitar was just iconic, and it still remains iconic to this day. But in that movie, played a real key part. And so, I know you were commissioned to make that guitar, but before you're commissioned, you had to have a relationship with Prince at some point. So let's go back to the beginning and, talk about your relationship with Prince and how this all started.
Well, he used to come in when he was in high school, when he had the big afro. The way he looked when they did those photos of him in front of the Schmidt building with the notes, that's
Absolutely.
how it was. He came in with his friends and later came in with some associates, some people, Owen Husney, and before that, the guy that recorded him in his studio, Chris Smoon.
Okay.
And he came in and we heard that he was real good. So on the north side was a lot of clubs and things, and the Capri Theater where Prince would play. So he would not be somebody, although he was actually too young to play in a club at that time. But even if he'd been older, I probably wouldn't have seen him too much in the clubs that most baby boomers went to, So there was a different scene. And this music store I worked at, though, New Capay, was the store in town where everybody wanted to hang out because it was the only store in town that wasn't owned by a guy that was the age of your dad. All the rest of them was like you're going to go to your uncle to get a guitar. But at New Capay, the owners were in their 20s. They were out playing in bars every night. It was like a hangout, and it was fun. They had a lot of fun with the business. It was unique. There was nothing like it. It was a small store, but everybody, it was like a store and a club to hang out in. And Prince came there, and one day we heard he was good, And one day he came up and he put a guitar on the strap and hung it. And if you get good at guitar, you can play it just with your left hand. You can tap the notes on,
right?
Kind of like Eddie Van Halen did that with two hands. But he did that with his left hand, and with his right hand, he played a harmony line on a keyboard at the same time. I've never seen anybody do that.
Wow.
And I went, wow,
Yeah.
And he was a up and coming guy. And I did some work for him. I worked on a guitar called the Gibson L6. But that whole scene, and once, it was such a different scene. Once Terry Lewis from The Time called me up and said, we're looking for a guitar player, because I was always playing in bands, even though I was working at the daytime on guitars. And I said, well, what do you got for gigs? And he said, well, sometimes we rent out a hall. I remember thinking, that's it, huh? So I didn't go to the rehearsal. It was a different scene, for the Black musicians, And then the next wake-up call was the day that David Z, Bobby Z's brother, is I can't think of their last name all of a sudden. He was a recording engineer and producer in town. He'd been doing it for a while. And he was working at a studio called Sound 80. And Prince fans will know about that, because what I'm going to tell you about next is the demos that David produced for Prince that got him his Warner Brothers contract.
Wow.
And David came in all the time because he was a guitar player. He'd been in a band in the 60s, you know, and he was the only guy in town that was a decent producer. There was nobody else, you know. This was flyover land for the big time, you know.
So in Minneapolis back then, I mean, you know, before Prince and the time, and yeah, before they kind of made some you know, noise back then. I mean, so you're saying that before that there wasn't a lot going on before they came on the scene.
I would say the only thing that happened in the 70s was the kind of punk scene of the Replacements, Husker Du, and all that made some impact, but not anywhere on the level of Prince. Before that, Minneapolis had a lot of places to play. You could actually make a living playing in bars if you were a cover band.
Sure.
And probably never even leave town and make enough money to buy a house and a car, just like, you know, as though you had a day job. You could play 5-6 nights a week. But if you had any big time plans, there was no support for that. There was no manager that could get you a national contract. There was no producers other than David Z. There was just none of the stuff to make that happen. This was the flyover land. Other than a couple novelty hits, this was it was the place to play every night in a bar, but nothing more. Everybody that had any plans would say, well, guys, it's time to go to LA, you know?
Yeah.
And, but one day, David Z came in with a boombox, if you know what that is, you know,
yep. I had many.
You know, and he set it down on the counter and he said, guys, listen to this. And he played us that demo of Prince. And I came up to him and I said, David, it sounds like you found the next Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wow.
He said, no, Dave, this is that guy with the afro that comes in. It's just him playing all the instruments.
That's incredible.
And we couldn't believe it. We thought, oh my God, he can do all that, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that was the real wake-up call. I mean, that it was him playing all the instruments. He sounded better than any band in town, doing it all, you know.
Himself, yeah.
He was on a different level. And then he had, you know, he did the Capri Theater, and then he got a contract, and he was happening, you know. And I think he made 3 albums.
Controversy would be in one of them, right?
Yeah.
Controversy.
Yeah, and I was in London, you know, before Purple Rain, and I saw his records in the stores. You know, he was an up and coming guy.
Sure.
But the Purple Rain is what just took him over the top. You know?
Yeah.
And so I'd done work for him and his band. And so, yeah, I knew who he was, but nobody could see that big of a thing coming in, because nobody in town and few people in the whole world ever had that much talent and got that big, you know. Right.
So how did the cloud guitar, I mean, how did you get commissioned to make that for Purple Rain? Because like I said, I mean, it's an iconic guitar and it's been around for decades. And so how did that come about?
Well, I was in London. I had an opportunity to go work in London at a store. It was the happening store in London. I had with the Stones and the Who, and everybody came in. And I did that for about a year. And when I came back, I was able to get my job back, and you could pay. The first day I walked in, I saw Prince at the counter talking to one of the owners. And then they went into the office, and I went downstairs to my shop. And the owner, Jeff Hill, who's deceased now, he come down and he said, Dave, Prince is going to make a movie. Right away, I thought, he's going to do that, huh? Usually you were further along in your career.
Right.
You know, like Elvis. I mean, he was very established by that time, more than Prince had. You know, to get a studio that would actually want to do that, you know, to prove that you're a real big deal already. But he had the willpower and the drive to make that happen. And he said, Jeff said, Dave, he needs a guitar and you're going to make it.
Wow.
And I had only repaired guitars. I had never made one at that point.
Really?
And which is quite different. It's kind of like the difference between working on a car and making one,
Right.
And I
Yeah.
thought, should I do it? Should I say yes? I mean, nobody could force
Yeah.
me, but I thought, thank God, I thought, sometimes you just got to say yes and make it happen. It's amazing sometimes what you can do if you're put on the line, And I remember thinking, if I can't do it, they're not going to kill me. I don't know what Prince would have done.
Yeah.
Probably got a white Fender Stratocaster instead, which would have been something anybody could have bought.
Right.
But I said, okay. They had another guy. They had him do all the repairs, and I worked on that. I bet 50, 60 hours a week for about a month.
Really?
Yeah. And
So how did you come up with the design? Because that cloud design is just incredible.
Well, Prince had a bass that had a lot of those features. It's
Okay.
called he bought it. There's some people think that it was bought in LA, but the story I've heard that seems to hold water is that he went to New York City hoping to get a recording contract and found this bass called I can't think of the name all of a sudden. It was made by a guy in New York City who worked at a shop. Well, anyway, he had this bass, and you can see it in a video, Andre Simone playing it.
Right.
And he said, use this as a starting point. It had the horn. It had a lot of the features, but it was a bass, and all the stuff on the top was different. It had to be reimagined as a guitar, but I didn't come up with it from scratch, but I used that as a starting point. Sardonyx bass. I thought, I've never done this before, so I better make some plans and a step-by-step program, because otherwise I'm going to be overwhelmed.
Right.
So I sat down with some paper and I made diagrams, and they had to be totally reimagined.
Sure.
A bass and a guitar have different proportions, different neck lengths.
Yeah.
Everything on the top of the instrument was going to be different. It just had the general shape,
Sure.
And I got in there and I had tremendous energy and drive. Instead of being onerous, it was exhilarating, actually.
Yeah.
I was doing something that was going to be in a movie. I was pushing myself, it felt good,
Yeah, for sure. And not only that, but for my listeners, Dave's cloud guitar, he has a yellow one that's hanging in the Smithsonian Institution, the American History Museum. And it's just beautiful. And I was able to touch it, and I'm like, this is incredible. I can't believe I'm so close to this iconic guitar. But it's just amazing, the work. And then, each one is so well crafted, but it's, it looks identical, just different colors. And I mean, how do you do it? Because you craft everything by hand. And so how do you make them just one beautiful one after the other? Because I know you make replicas now too.
Well, once I had the shape on a piece of paper, I drew it out on the board and cut it out. But that was only the start. I don't know if you know what a Fender Telecaster is.
I do, yeah.
There's almost nothing to it. It's a cutout board with a neck on it.
Right.
So if I was making one of those, once I cut it out, I'm kind of done. I mean, as far as any shaping,
Sure.
But the cloud guitar, you're just begun.
Yeah.
There's a little scroll in the end of the horn. I do that with little miniature chisels.
Wow.
The sides are all sloped. I rough that out with a $500 palm sander, the world's best palm sander, and everything is drawn out. I have stencils and everything, so they all come out. I want everything to not be exactly like the same, like to come out of a machine, but to be very close. When I do these, I have photos of one of the first ones I did, close-up photos.
Sure.
And I look at them every once in a while so they don't start to change. I want them to be just like the original.
Yeah.
Which is not easy after 40 years.
Right.
They still make the trees, but a lot of the other stuff, they started to change. I had to get the pickup company to do a special run with the old logo. The tuners were changed. I found 40 sets that had never been opened for 20 years on reverb. And the bridges, they haven't made in 8 years, where the strings come through. And I got people in foreign countries to go around and look for those, and the ones that were never sold. So it's tough to replicate something after all that time, but I get everything the same, It's as though I made another one for Prince, but somebody buys it instead because obviously Prince can't have it, but they're just like that.
Yeah. Now, did you ever imagine when you made that guitar for the movie that it would blow up the way it did? I mean, did you ever any imagination that it would happen like that?
No, and in fact, I don't think most people thought the movie would be that big,
Right.
What made the movie was the concert scenes. Other than that, it was competent, but it wasn't.
Sure.
It wasn't Gone with the Wind, but the concert scenes, and I think it came out at the right time. We needed something like that, somebody new, a new superstar. The excitement was there, and there's other factors that sometimes you don't even know. But I know I had no idea it would be that big. In fact, until the internet came along, it took the internet to kind of bring everybody back together. The internet has revived all kinds of things like bands. There's a band I used to love called Procol Harum. They had Whiter Shade of Pale, and they kept going. And then they broke up, but with the internet, the fan base grew and grew, and then they put together a new version of it. So the internet brings together fans in a way that could never be before. It wouldn't be as near as big for me if there was no internet. That brought everything together.
That's well said. You know what, Dave? With the time and Prince and the Minneapolis sound. I mean, it all came out in the mid '80s like that. And working at the music store. I mean, did you have any interaction with the time? I know you said Terry Lewis called you, but was that kind of like everybody was kind of, I guess friendly with each other? They're all kind of, just in just some different bands, but maybe they knew each other from the neighborhood. I mean, is there any insight that you can provide on that? Because I've always wondered that if they went to school together or how they knew each other.
Oh, all those people did, yeah. And there was a whole bunch of other ones that never got as big. You heard of Pepe Willie? He did an album with Prince called 94 East. There was a band that had with Prince when Prince was a teenager.
Okay.
There was a whole black culture in the north side of Minneapolis, players, and everybody knew everybody. I did work for the time, made a guitar for Jesse Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Worked on Terry Lewis's bass. He's the bass player, too. Yeah.
Yep.
And then there were all kinds of other bands. I can't think of their names. Well, when you have a scene in a certain town, there's a lot of other bands kind of like that never get as big. Like if you went to Liverpool and studied the Beatles time, there were hundreds of bands in Liverpool, that were all part of the scene. And here's one thing I'd say about Prince is amazing is his music was, and all his work and everything. In some ways, the most amazing thing he did was to take Minneapolis, this flyover land musically that I was referring to, and turn that into the capital of music of the whole world. Instead of people leaving Minneapolis to make it, they were coming here. Jesse Johnson, I think he came from Iowa, and all of a sudden this was where it was happening. Entertainment Tonight, they came and watched me, filmed me once. People from foreign countries, they want to meet me. I met this girl from France. She was so excited because she thought she saw the dumpster that was in the movie downtown Minneapolis where they threw the girl, It was a new, he changed the town. It was like they moved Minneapolis out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
In some ways, that is his most amazing achievement. One guy did that. It wasn't a band. It wasn't an organization. It was one guy's effort. He changed the whole town.
Just amazing, and then, around that same time you were talking about all the other bands. I was fortunate to go to high school with the Jets, so I know they're kind of rejuvenating their career right now. And, and just, like you said, all the time players, that you worked with. And, around that time there was, the Sounds of Blackness and, and Nesby and all these greats that came from Minnesota, and the group Next, the R&B group. So there's a lot of people that came out of the Minneapolis that kind of put us on the map at that time. And, so it's just amazing that, that time of growing up there was just, to me, was all about the Minneapolis sound. And like you said, just blew up around the world. And it was kind of, we were proud to have us put on the map.
Yeah. And Prince,
and then,
I was going to say, Prince had different people that he mentored. There was Sue Ann Cardwell.
Yeah.
He had Alexander O'Neill, who was a notable singer. There was a whole bunch of them.
Susanna Hoffs and so many others. And I want to talk about your shop, because I know you have your shop there in Bloomington, Minnesota. And I know you do great work. And so those musicians that are listening, I want you to kind of tell our listeners, about your shop a little bit and how they can contact you if they need some work done.
Yeah, it's in my house, but it takes over most of the whole lower level. My garage is converted into a big woodworking shop. And I've been running out of my house since about 2000 and have a very vital repair business, do all kinds of repairs and work. And, and I occasionally made the cloud guitar since Prince died, but after he died, the orders really started to come in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I remember the day after he called, I had 22 phone calls.
Wow.
So I work a lot. Since Prince died, I have made almost 60 of those cloud guitars.
Wow, that's
I
incredible.
got orders. I just sold one to Andrew Watt. Now that
you were telling me about Andrew. Yeah,
he's the hottest young producer really in the world. I mean, he's done the last Stones album, Elton John, Dua Lipa. Lipa. Everybody. He is the guy, and he's going to be playing it on tour with Eddie Vedder, who's doing a solo tour.
Oh wow! So and I saw pictures of him playing that guitar. And just the pictures alone, I mean, it's amazing. It really fits him to play that guitar, and like I said, amazing work. What's your website so people that want to check you out? Do you have a website that they can look at?
Yeah, the website for the guitars I make, which I now call the Rusan Originals, because cloud guitar is a registered name that I can't use anymore. But you can do that, It's just that I can't advertise it that way. Sure. It's Rusan Original. And there you can see the guitars. You can see them in different colors. It explains if you buy one, what you get. It talks about how I still make them by hand. You can buy a lot of copies of that guitar for all different price points. There's all kinds. I bet there's 100 sites for Chinese ones.
Really?
For about $300.
Wow.
There's the Schecter ones that Paisley Park sold. Those are a huge step up, but mine are the only ones that are really totally authentic, because I want to appeal to Prince fans that can't afford one of the ones I made originally, because they go for the second one I made, it went for $500,000,
Yeah.
But they're just the same, So I sell them to Prince fans that or some of them don't even play guitar. Once I had a girl come over here. She ordered one. She lived in town here. She wasn't even alive yet when Purple Rain came out, and she doesn't even play guitar. But she wanted that. It's kind of the ultimate keepsake of Prince.
Yeah, right. Correct. It is. It really is. I mean, Dave, it's just such an iconic guitar, and that's the one thing from Purple Rain that I just, like I said, I love that scene. I love that, the feeling that he had when he looked at it in the window hanging there, and then the fact that he got it for a gift. I mean, that was such a powerful moment for me in the movie. I thought it was great. So that's one of the things that really stuck with me with Purple Rain, was that scene. And speaking of Purple Rain, they're coming out with a musical that they're going to be premiering in Minneapolis and then moving to Broadway. Do you have any piece of this with that guitar? Did they commission you on that?
No, I only heard about it about 2 weeks ago, and I reached out to a few people, but haven't had any no results, no returns on my emails.
Yeah.
I suppose I would guess they would get one of the Schecter ones to use, which are decent, you know.
Well, they're about a year away, so you never know.
I'd like to be involved. You know, it'd be fun. It'd be good for my business, but it also is fun to participate in things that honor Prince. You know,
right?
Because what I'm doing when I make them, I mean, I'm making something that helps me make a living, but there's a lot more to it. I'm making Prince fans happy. They're very happy when they get them. They become very loyal. Some of them become friends. Yeah. And then I'm honoring Prince's memory. I'm helping keeping it alive too. So that's, you know, I feel that I'm doing more than just making a living at it. You know? You're
honoring a legacy, and you're an amazing artist. And you know, before we go, I ask everybody this and my guests, but when it's all said and done, Dave, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind when people think of Dave Rusan?
Well, not to get too philosophical, but you know, as years go on, at least for me, the thing that becomes most important is that you have integrity of your character. So I try and be honest, and I don't know, maybe this is not what you want to hear from that question, but it's, you know, to live a decent life. Obviously, I'm human and make mistakes, but to be kind and try and be honest. But I guess with the guitars, you know, I think they'll be around long after I'm gone. The Smithsonian is not going to throw theirs out, you know. Yeah. So I have that legacy of helping to honor a great musician, and I feel honored that I was able to have that opportunity to make those.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. And you know, Dave, again, just an honor to have you on the show, and fellow Minnesotan besides.
If I can say one other thing too, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has the #2 one that I made. It's blue at this point instead of white, and it sold for $500,000. And wow. You know, they didn't have my name on it. And when you make something, you know, you like to be credited. And finally, of course, I found out that they're going to put my name on it. So if anybody goes to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, have a good time, and I hope you see my name on the guitar.
And take a picture of it and send it to you.
Well, I'd like to see that. Yes, I hope to go out there. Yeah. But anyway, sorry to interrupt there.
No, I appreciate that. In fact, you know, I can't wait to go back to the Smithsonian and see the yellow one again. It's amazing, and I inspect. It's just so perfectly made. Just absolutely love that guitar. So I spent a lot of time by that guitar when we were there, and you know, again, just great work on your part. Great stories from the past with Prince and the others. You know, some of the Time members, and you know, I just wish you nothing but the best, Dave. And you know, again, thank you for, you know, honoring me with your time, and you know, I hope to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you, Dave.